Operation Sindoor has been a major setback for India's strategic ties with America, which, if not over, are already on life support. Now, this is a colossal setback for India's foreign policy, considering India has invested a lot of time and energy in this single relationship, which is the centerpiece of India's foreign policy today. When we talk of strategic relations between countries, we are talking of long-term relationship where the foreign policy objectives of both the countries are met. Those are strategic ties. Now, as far as the other two great powers of the world are concerned in present multipolar world, China and Russia, India's relations with Russia today are on thin ice. And regarding China, let alone strategic ties, even normal ties with Beijing will not be possible as long as the Modi government is in power. Let me focus on India's relations with America. Now, it was clear to the Indian establishment within days of Trump's swearing in that his focus or his foreign policy was very unlike the foreign policy of his predecessors. Trump was not interested in a security competition with China in the Indian Ocean region. And as far as India is concerned, India had a strategic role to play in the Indian Ocean region as well as Quad, which is again a part of that. So the worry here in India was that the strategic relations between India and America under the Trump administration would diminish, and that would impact its own foreign policy, which I'll explain in a while. So something else had to be done. And so rightly the Indian establishment zeroed on MAGA. Now Trump has promised his voter base MAGA, which is Make America Great Again. So India decided that this will be the centerpiece of its strategic ties with America. Therefore, within a month of Trump swearing in, Prime Minister Modi was in Washington and the two leaders signed a joint statement on 13th February 2025, where India promised a lot of things to buy from America as part of its MAGA agenda, to enhance the MAGA agenda. And the centerpiece of the joint statement is Mission 500. So what has been promised is that from the present bilateral trade between the two countries, which stands at $200 billion, it will be increased in the next 5 years to $500 billion by 2030. And all that was to be included in the trade was getting the green technology, big technology from America, energy, defense, space issues, besides other things. So this was a very big thing. And Trump was obviously very happy about it. And so was India. And then Operation Sindoor happened. And two big things came to the fore. The first was that President Trump repeatedly, he said at least 28 times that he is the man who got the ceasefire between India and Pakistan and prevented a nuclear war. Now, as far as Pakistan was concerned, they immediately understood the importance of what Trump was saying. And their foreign minister, Ishaq Dar, he thanked publicly President Trump for the ceasefire, and Pakistan also nominated President Trump for doing this to the Nobel Peace Prize. Now, in India, there was a lot of laughter, derision on the thing. And as far as Indian establishment was concerned, the Prime Minister himself, Modi, in the debate in the parliament on this special session of Sindoor, the farthest that he could go in the repeated claim made by President Trump was to say that no world leader asked India to stop the operations. Nothing more than that, which is really saying nothing, not helping Trump at all. But the problem of the Indians was that Modi could not have given the credit to President Trump, because Modi in India's foreign policy has to be projected as a very strong leader. So that was not possible for India to do that. But when you see things from Trump's perspective, MAGA is one aspect of his foreign policy, that he has something that he has promised to his voter base. The other thing that he promised to the voter base was that he would end forever wars. He would not be a war president, he would be a peace president. He wanted to end the war in Ukraine, where he has failed, and he wanted to end the wars in Middle East, where once again he has failed. Therefore, Trump needed a way out. He wanted something where he has contributed to peace. So this was that one big thing where he wanted to take credit. And that was being denied by the Indian establishment. You see, he did get credit for the Cambodia-Thailand war, where he said that I brokered the ceasefire, and the Cambodian government thanked him publicly. And now the Cambodian government is even contemplating nominating Trump for the peace, Nobel Peace. But that is different from India and Pakistan, since both the countries are nuclear weapon countries. Now, when you see things, this whole thing, Trump repeatedly saying 28 times a ceasefire that he brokered, then there is a bit of a merit from his perspective also. Please recall that on 6th, 7th night, Defense Minister Rajnath Singh has said in the parliament that within half an hour of India starting the operation, Indian DGMO reached out to the DGMO of Pakistan saying that we want a ceasefire, we don't want escalation. And we also know that early morning 8th May, NSA Doval reached out to his American counterpart, Marco Rubio, who doubles both as the NSA as well as the Secretary of State of America. And he gave everything what had happened between India and Pakistan. All the details were given to Marco Rubio, and all this is there that he spoke with Marco Rubio in a press release that was issued by the Indian Embassy in Washington. And we know that other officials also from the Indian establishment, they were in touch with their counterparts in America. Now, Marco Rubio, after talking with Doval, he also said that America was very closely monitoring the India-Pakistan situation, and that President Trump wanted an early ceasefire. Now, how much he contributed, we do not know. But there is a precedence with the BJP governments. Please remember the last BJP government, that was the Vajpayee government. Now, Vajpayee government did Operation Parakram in May of 2002 when things heated up. There were terrorist killings in Kaluchak, and Vajpayee was compelled to say this, that there will be a war to the finish with Pakistan. He had to say that, but he was not serious about that war. So immediately after that, his NSA, then Brajesh Mishra, got in touch with the American counterpart, Condoleezza Rice, and he asked Condoleezza Rice that I cannot stop the war here on my own. The war lobby in India is very strong and I need some help. It was after he told this to Condoleezza Rice that she spoke with President Bush, and President Bush spoke with General Musharraf, and things were eased out between India and Pakistan. We know all this because Condoleezza Rice has written about this in a book, No Higher Honor. So you see, this is the problem. Perhaps after much time, we will come to know also what exact was the contribution of President Trump in this India-Pakistan ceasefire. But what we know is that when Field Marshal Asim Munir was invited by President Trump to the White House for lunch, Trump publicly thanked Asim Munir at the lunch for the ceasefire, that he did the ceasefire on his request. So this is one thing, a big thing from Trump's perspective, where he is not happy with India at all. Now the other thing is, perhaps having got the intelligence from his own community, from his own people, President Trump publicly said that, wanting to emphasize the intensity of the India-Pakistan war, that 5 jets were down. But he was hoping that Prime Minister Modi or somebody from India would say as to how many were their jets. But once again, from the Indian side, there was no reaction, leading to his conclusion, the input he got from his own intelligence agency and from Asim Munir when they had the lunch, that perhaps all these 5 jets which were down were of the Indian Air Force. And therefore, he would have come to the conclusion that Pakistan is actually militarily a peer competitor of the Indian military, and hence there is a need that America can engage with Pakistan because Americans believe in military power. And because of that, we have seen that the strategic ties between America and Pakistan, they have strengthened. Because America is looking at 2 things from Pakistan, something that I elaborated in my last video, and those 2 things are, they are looking at Pakistan help for stability in Afghanistan, and the other is that through Pakistan they are looking at some sort of a foothold in the region to keep an eye, to keep a watch on the Eurasian landmass. So these are the 2 things. So as far as Trump is concerned, he's not happy about them. Now, another thing that has happened is that what Trump wants from India is that India get out of BRICS. Because he has publicly said that BRICS is an anti-American lobby, it wants to weaken the dollar, and I will not accept this. So this is another demand of his. And then, because he is so much frustrated with President Putin not ending the war in Ukraine, what he wants to do is put secondary sanctions on Russia. And in that context, he has told publicly the Indian side that you must stop buying the Russian oil, and you must stop buying Russian defense equipment. All this you should buy from elsewhere, not from Russia. You see, what we have to keep in mind is that as far as America is concerned, the thinking is entirely different. America does not believe in partnerships. It has never had equal partnerships ever. So it is always that you can see President Trump really as Emperor Trump, who dictates things to the vassal state. So he has said so many things to India that these are the constraints that you have to work under. So the basic point that I want to make is this, that while today President Trump talks about 25% tariff on India, and now the deadline has been extended by a week, the point is there is enough flexibility in this. But where there is inflexibility, or where he is extremely unhappy, is India not giving credit to him for the ceasefire. Then he is not happy with India being in BRICS, and he is not happy with India buying Russian oil as well as defense equipment, and this will make the relationship very, very difficult in the days to come. And all this has happened because of Operation Sindoor. Now, look at India's foreign policy. You see, the Indian foreign policy right from Jaishankar, when he became the foreign minister in 2019, the first thing he did was that he conveniently ignored the big changes going on in the world, it is called the once in a century changes. Because his single point agenda was to project the image of the Prime Minister, first of all, as a very powerful military leader, a leader which could stop the PLA on the tracks at the Himalaya, a leader which could do the 2016 so-called surgical strike, 2019 air attacks, and now Operation Sindoor in 2025, and a leader which would take the country to becoming a major power. A leader which was sought by all the nations of the world, and hence India's multi-aligned policy that India could be both in Quad and the BRICS at the same time. Now, when you have this sort of a projectionist foreign policy, then you find that Jaishankar's whole policy, it is focused on four things, interconnected things. The key thing is that India's strategic ties with America, that is the pivot of his foreign policy. And connected with that is India's close ties with the G7 nation, the industrialized nations, the global north. And the third element is India to be seen as a bridge between the global north and the global south, because India is a very prominent country of global south. And this is what Jaishankar started from India's presidency of G20 in 2023, that India is the bridge between the two. And the last and perhaps equally important is that to the people of India, India should be seen in a regional competition with China, basically piggybacking on the American foreign policy. So this is the reason that normal ties cannot happen between India and China. So these are the four basic pillars of India's foreign policy. So it is very obvious that things are completely in a very difficult shape for India. Now let me go over to Russia, the other great power, which is a time-tested friend of India. I said that the relationship are on a very slippery slope there, on very thin ice there. Now you see, what Russia wants from India is that India help in strengthening RIC, which is the Russia, India, China triangular matrix, triangular cooperation, because this is at the heart of BRICS, and BRICS is very important for Russia. So Russia wants that when the Prime Minister goes, and it is almost a certainty that he will go for the SCO summit, which is to be held on 31st August and 1st September in China. He will go there because India needs full support of China for its own BRICS presidency in 2026. So Russia is keen that there the three leaders get together and they revive RIC. Once again, a very difficult thing for India, because Trump will be watching all this. Well, as far as Russia is concerned, the agenda is much bigger than this, than BRICS. Because just as BRI has expanded, BRI, Belt and Road Initiative of China, it's based with a focus on geoeconomics. First it was about BRI, now it has become Digital Silk Road also, so it has expanded. Similarly, President Putin's agenda of EEU, Eurasian Economic Union, has now become Greater Eurasia, where the focus is less on development and more on security. Having a security right from ASEAN until Pakistan, this is the huge sweep that the Russians are looking at. And for that, what President Putin has proposed is a Eurasian security architecture. Now, this is a very big thing. And the Chinese are aligned. As I have said in my earlier videos also, both President Putin and Xi Jinping are on the same page. The Belt and Road, expanded Belt and Road into Digital Silk Road and Greater Eurasia, they are completely aligned. So this security, your Eurasian security architecture that I am talking about is once again based on a different concept than the concept of or the thinking of the Americans and the global north. This is based on indivisible security, relative security, collective security. It's a different concept altogether. And here Russia is keen, as well as China is keen, that for this, the key countries will be China, Russia, Iran, Pakistan and India. Now, this is a very big thing, but this is precisely what the Russians are looking at. And once again, for India to fulfill this is extremely difficult. Now, coming to China, you see, normal relations, I've already said, because India has to be seen in a competition with China, were not possible. Add to that the complexity of Operation Sindoor, where China openly supported the Pakistan military. Now, India cannot ignore this factor. But at the same time, India knows pretty well that China's support is important for its own 18th BRICS presidency in India in 2026. So the point I am making is that Indian foreign policy is now heading towards very turbulent times with all the three great powers, the powers that matter, the powers which will determine the global geopolitics of the world and will bring stability to this world. And all this has happened because the foreign policy crafted by Jaishankar is a projectionist foreign policy. It is not a foreign policy that helps the Indian poor, something that I've explained in my earlier videos also. Thank you so much.